That's right, I am indeed your host for the next 2 hours of live radio, right here on the #1 network, Truth Frequency Radio, TFRlive.com. And if you don't know by now, I'm Kev Baker, and this is the Kev Baker Show. And we're going out live from Glasgow all the way down to Australia, all the way back around to Alaska, and then we're going over to Norway, back to Nebraska. You know how it goes. And we do that thanks to Chris and Cherie Geo and the magic of TFRlive.com. But we are nothing without our audience. And it's our audience that I have gone to today to find us a new guest that I think is going to be a perfect fit for the Kev Baker Show. Tell you how it all came about. Good friend Algo Rhythm, who we've come to know over on the YouTube channel. He's been on the show here as well. He's a very active member of the KBS Discord server. And I like to listen to his YouTube channel, and you can find that Algo Rhythm. Funnily enough, a YouTube channel. It's on YouTube. And he does like a kind of talk show. Sometimes he hangs out with Polynation, but more often than not, he has somebody called Felisha joining him. And it's Felisha I have got for the show today. And you know why I picked Felisha for the show? Because I was listening to one round table that Algo was doing, and they were getting into all the topics that I love. And in particular, Felisha was talking about Skinwalker Ranch. And I remember saying at the time in Discord, that's it, I'm getting this one on the show, it's going to happen. It has happened. It's taken a little while for me to kind of rearrange the furniture, get everything sorted out. But you know how we roll here. Everything happens at just the right time. And I can't think of a better time for myself and Felisha to talk about all of the unexplained mysteries of Missing 411. We'll be talking about the Atlov Pass. We'll be getting into UFOs. We'll be going to Skinwalker, Loch Ness. You name it. If it's paranormal or supernatural, we might be talking about it. And it's a good time to be doing that, because there's so much serious going on in the world right now. Tensions are running high, and me adding to it by talking about them time after time coming on here, it doesn't help anyone. Yes, there are shows where we address all of the 5 sense reality, 3D news as I call it. But I think now, today, with everything that's been going on over the weekend, social media, I've never seen it so triggery. I think what better time to take you all into the woo. Before I bring Felisha on, may I just apologise to everyone who was tuned into Warrior Mode last night. I take full responsibility for that one. That was a problem at my end. Quite funny how we were talking about black helicopters immediately before I got cut off, but folks, I'm not going to hype it up. It was what it was. The internet, it went out. It's back on now. We're here. But apologies to anyone who tuned in for that. And we'll be back next Sunday on YouTube with Warrior Mode. So, enough talking from me. Let's get right to today's guest. Felisha, welcome to KBS.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. This is super exciting to be here.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you here. I like to hang out with anyone who likes to talk about these kind of topics I like to get into. You know, Jimmy Jeans, he comes on the show with me at times, and I know going into the woo, it's not really his thing. It really isn't. But then sometimes I come across people like yourself where I know I can just go into any kind of woo topic, and it's going to be something that you're going to definitely be able to come back with. Some people do the woo, some people don't. And a big shout out to Jimmy. Hopefully I'll be hanging out with him later on in the week at some point. I'm going to try and get him on the show. But Felisha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am located here in the United States. I live in Utah, so if anyone knows anything about Utah, it's known a lot for its outdoors, so that's what I like to do, is just go out into the outdoors, go camping, hang out in the mountains, and do some fishing and all of that good stuff. So, and really enjoy the supernatural. I've been really into it for a long time now. So it's always just fun to talk about it and kind of just get into the ifs, of, you know, what's going on around us and the unexplainable. So it's
Oh,
always a good time.
oh, I'm loving the sound of this. And may I ask you then, did you get into this at a young age? Are you somebody that's actually had any kind of interactions with the paranormal, the supernatural? What was it that really ignited this fire in you, Felisha?
You know, I have been into it since a young age. So for a while, it's just been something that's always been really interesting to me, and because it's just so unexplainable. And I've had a few, you know, of my own run-ins with some of the paranormal. I mean, nothing crazy, you know, to write home about, but you know, it's always interesting when you kind of have a little bit of a run-in with something. You know, whether it be supernatural or paranormal, and it kind of just sticks with you for the rest of your life. And, you know, it always seems to pop up every now and then, I think. So kind of just a way of life for me sometimes, you know?
Oh, don't I know it? You're definitely reading from the same book as me, Felicia. I'm telling you. I didn't have any real ghosty type experience growing up, but ghosts and stories of them and Loch Ness, it was all around me, you know. It was kind of natural that you kind of talked about these subjects, and I carried it on. You know, I left the Highlands, I went away to the army, and some people in the army thought I was absolutely backcrap crazy, but there was other guys there as well, you know, and sitting up all night doing guard, and sometimes you'd be stuck with somebody that would be into it, and then other times you'd be stuck with people that didn't want to hear anything of it, just weren't having ghosts, weren't having UFOs, didn't believe in anything. And of course, you've been in Utah, and we're going to talk about this later on in the show, but are you far from my hallowed ground of Skinwalker? How far away are you from that
Um,
absolute center of woo?
yeah, I am probably a few hours away from the Skinwalker Ranch area. So I mean, close enough, you know, to make a drive down there, but you know, probably more far enough to make it kind of a day thing. So an all-day event. So
So what do people in Utah, I mean, is it common for people to talk about it, or is it just, you know, people are that used to it, you know, it's just another thing? What do people say around you about that place?
you know, that's the weird thing. I don't think a lot of people are either interested or really know that much about it. Um, a lot of the people in the area, you know, they kind of seem to live in a bubble of sorts, and they're not really, a lot of people I've been around though, they're not really interested so much in this type of stuff. So they're not really, um, they don't really talk about it or really know much about it.
That's their loss. That's all I would say. Definitely their loss, right? Because, I mean, Skinwalker, it's got everything. And we are going to come to Skinwalker later on, but when I was asking you today what kind of topics you really like to get into, it was like checking off some of my top stories. It really was. And myself and Scott and Jimmy again, we've often talked about missing 411 type cases. And for people out there who might be thinking, missing 411? What the heck's that? Well, if you check out David Paulides, I don't know how he actually pronounces his surname, but he's put together an amazing amount of work that contains so many of these strange disappearances. People just literally vanishing. There 1 minute, gone the next. And the amount of times that it happens in these national forests in America, for me, it's a statistical anomaly. It stands out. And the secrecy that comes from the kind of park rangers and the government over these types of things, that just adds to this mystery. So, Felicia, when did you first start to find out about this missing 411 type phenomena?
You know, I probably ran across it. It had to have been, man, probably about 10 years ago now. And then I really started getting into it probably about 6 years ago or so. And I was just really intrigued by how how the stories are all kind of connected to each other, and how these people go missing, and like the weird anomalies around that, and how so many of them happen to be in the United States, national forests. And I thought that was really just intriguing, because out of everywhere, in the world, I mean, or at least here in the United States, people are going missing in these clusters, so to speak, these cluster areas throughout the United States. And a lot of them have very just weird, strange anomalies happening around them. And it just makes it, super interesting to look at those details.
Yeah, I think I first heard David talking on a Coast to Coast, and he was talking about how he fell into this basically, and when he went to the park rangers and the government for freedom of information requests about just how many people go missing every year in these national parks, it started to get a bit kind of Men in Black. Everyone was kind of not wanting to give out the information. I think at one point he was going to have to pay like something ridiculous to the tune of millions to actually try and get his hands on these records. And he's got park rangers, some of them telling him, no, we don't keep records for that. Some of them are almost like park ranger whistleblowers. They're saying, yeah, there's definitely something going on here. And it's just the weirdness that's involved in some of these cases. I mean, one of the ones I heard, Felicia, was it was a young lad had gone missing, and I think his clothes had been found, all folded up, shoes, everything there. But the body, it's the actual, when they recovered the lad, I think it was a good while later, you're talking about miles away, up the side of a mountain that he probably couldn't have got up on his own at the best of times, let alone with no clothing on, no shoes on. I think when it came to the autopsy, there was even something strange with that. And that's just one example. I know you've been looking at some examples of these cases as well, though, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I actually just recently watched, probably about a month or two ago, the Missing 411, The Hunted documentary. And the author himself, he actually helps produce and direct, and he's also in this documentary, so it makes it even better, in my opinion. And there is just so many crazy things, because he goes over a list of these items that kind of connect all these cases together. And one of them being that there's always a weather event, which I thought was kind of crazy. It doesn't matter really like what time of the year. There's always a weather event, either that will begin before the search starts or just shortly after the search starts for these people.
That's pretty weird, right? I mean, when you think about that alone before you even get anywhere, I mean, that in itself must be like some kind of statistical anomaly, You just get all these weird weather outbreaks. It's got to be symptomatic of something, or maybe it's just one of these things where we're looking for patterns where patterns don't exist, But what else have you found that they have in common, and what did this documentary really get into?
Yeah. So another couple things that they got into that's talk about what makes them common to each other is that I found was interesting was they're always around boulder fields or granite fields of some sort. So I don't know what that means. To me, my theory would be that maybe there's some sort of I don't know, something in the mineral in the rocks that kind of causes some sort of disturbance of something that connects all of these people together on that.
No, you could be onto something. I mean, we often talk about the ancient monuments and whether or not. I mean, we look at a rock, a stone as just that, like, right? It's a rock, it's a stone. But maybe, with the crystalline qualities, with qualities that maybe we don't even understand, Felicia. Like you say, when you've got a concentration of these in one area, does it do something to the magnetic field? Does it lower the boundary between this world and the next? Very interesting that that's actually been, that commonality has actually been registered, and David's kind of caught on to it,
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was extremely intriguing. And then another thing is their time of disappearance. A lot of these people, they're disappearing, into the mid or late afternoon time frame. So, plenty of light is out. You still probably have a good handful of hours before the sun even starts setting, and this is really around the time that these people are disappearing, which I don't know why that is, but it's it's
Again,
an interesting, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, we're just kind of speculating here. You know how we do that on KBS? We are on Speculation Island, folks. And then maybe, this is going to sound weird, but maybe not. Um, with it being sunrise, sunset, is it something to do with the way that the light's hitting those stones that you're talking about? But when the sun's coming down, it could be anything. Pretty fascinating, Felicia. Pretty fascinating.
It is. And a couple other items that they talked about was a lot of these are near water, and the person, not always, but oftentimes will have either a disability or an illness of some sort.
Now, I didn't realise that. That's
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Yeah,
Again,
so
I mean, what does that mean? We've got all these really interesting points, but you can imagine what it must be like being David Paulides trying to put all of this together. And it's the amount of people as well. I mean, this isn't just like 2 or 3 people we're talking about, is it?
No, it's so many. Hundreds easily a year, if not more, thousands probably. I don't know the exact number, but it's a large amount of people yearly that are going missing, with these similar types of events or things that connect them all together.
I remember maybe a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, because there's been so much crammed into 2020, it feels like about 10 years. But there was a guy who had gone skiing upstate in New York, and I think he turned up about maybe 3 days to a week later on the other side of the country in California. He was naked. He woke up in the back of somebody's truck. For me, that was I don't know if that was somebody that had gone on a wild weekend. Maybe he'd gone away skiing and then maybe flew to Vegas. I don't know what happened there. But at the time, I remember when people were talking about it, and they were kind of saying that this fits with the kind of weirdness that you hear about with these missing 411 cases all the time, because you get a mixture of people turning up alive and dead, wouldn't you say, Felicia? I mean, sometimes people just turn up in places that they shouldn't have been. Is that right?
Yeah, from what I've understood, a lot of them, it seems to be that a lot of them are found dead rather than alive, but there are still quite a few that are found alive. And most of the time, they have zero recollection of what happened or where they were, or how they got to where they were, or what happened after they disappeared. It's just like a memory wipe of some sort. So, and I don't know if that's because, they had their memory wiped, or if maybe it was so traumatic what happened to them that it was just, they blocked it or something.
That's a very good point. It's been well known that some people, when they go through trauma, we were talking about it on a story the other day. I think it might be to do with the Dyatlov Pass, but when you have that traumatic incident, you lose the ability even to talk sometimes. So the fact that these people can't remember, it doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you, because whatever they've been through, and I don't think there's one set answer, and that's just my opinion. I think it's a whole host of things that could be happening. But whatever it is, it's definitely affecting these people in a really dramatic and drastic way. Now, I think you said to me before the show that you've actually looked at a particular case as well that really has all of this kind of weird ambiguity and craziness to it. Is that right?
Yes. This case was particularly interesting to me. And so it is, if you want to check the whole thing out, it is in the Missing 411, the Hunted series, so you can watch it for yourself. But this guy, his name's Aaron Hedges, and he went missing in the Crazies mountain range in Montana. And supposedly these mountains are 300 million years younger than the Rockies, and and they're kind of like an island mountain range chain. So they're just their own set of mountains.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
just
that
kind
are
of stuck there in the middle of somewhere, right?
yeah. And so he had gone missing, and this is a guy who regularly hunted. He was very familiar with these mountains. He had caches set up in the mountains, you know, with supplies and stuff, because he went up there constantly. And he went out with a buddy, and him and his buddy, they, you know, they start going. They're gonna get to their place, their base camp, and I guess the horse at one point got spooked and dropped a bunch of their gear, so he lost a bunch of gear. And that happened. His buddy went off to the base camp, and he went off on his own. He set off on his own to hit up one of his caches that he had hidden to get some supplies, because he had lost his sleeping bag and some other essential stuff. So, you know, he needed to be prepared. So that's why he left and went off on his own. And, you know, his buddy wasn't worried because, you know, like I said, he'd been up there a lot and very familiar with the area. Well, I guess what happened is his buddy didn't end up, you know, he didn't come back. Aaron had just didn't end up making it back. And his buddy, the next morning, that's when he, you know, went back down to get help because his friend hadn't come back. And not right when he left, but once they were about to start the search, it started snowing. And
there's that weather again.
Yep. And so they said that they got about 18 to 24 inches of snow in about a 24-hour period. So, you know, it definitely hindered their search some, but they were still able to, you know, go out there and look for him. And what had happened is, I guess there's a fork in the road where he can go left to go to his cache, but he ended up going right. And so I don't know, it was kind of speculated that maybe he saw something and it spooked him into going the opposite direction.
Now, Felisha, did you say that this guy was a hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, these are some of the weirdest ones for me, right? Because ex-army, and I'm not saying I'm Mr. Survivalist, right? But I can find my way about, and I know how to operate outdoors. And as for hunters, especially somebody that's familiar with an area, I mean, these people are quite literally in tune with the wildlife, with the environment. You couldn't hope to be with a better guide, or if anyone's going to get lost, Felisha, right? You're going to put your money on it being a hunter that's going to have the kind of wherewithal to survive it and to come back and tell the tale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I also was thinking too, I mean, he had a cache set up. I mean, there's no way he could have gotten lost. You know, he knows what he's doing when he's out there. And so that was just the first, you know, set off point for me. Like something must have spooked him, in my opinion, because for him to just go off, taking off in the opposite direction.
And what spooks a hunter? I mean,
Yeah.
these are
Really?
rugged guys. These ain't soy boys out there hunting, you know. They've got socks on, they haven't got their mankles out. They know how to handle themselves. So you've got a big, burly hunter, and something spooks them. I often talk, Felisha, about how forests, people laugh at me for this, but it's true. I honestly think they do have a life of their own. And I wonder how much all of this plays into these missing 411 type stories, because I don't know whether you'd call it a life force, an energy, but it's alive with all things supernatural, paranormal, and a whole host of other things going on. But that's my take on it. What do you think?
I agree, absolutely. I mean, and I don't know if it has something to do with just the, you know, the solitude that you find in the forests, but I also think it has to do with the, you know, the energy. I mean, like you said, everything's alive. There's so many things that are alive, these living organisms, and I don't know, it's a different kind of energy that you get in a forest, deep in the forest, alone and away, disconnected from everyone and everything, than you do anywhere else. So.
Yeah, you're right there. Absolutely right. And we're almost on the first break already. I told you this was going to be a good show, Felicia. I am most impressed already. I've got some notes here. We're going to pick up where we leave off here on the other side. And let me just take this opportunity to remind people that Lucky will be live on the network right after KBS finishes today. But don't go anywhere, because I'll be back on the other side with Felicia. More woo coming your way right here on TFRlive.com. Are going full woo on Monday. Yes, I've got a new guest here with us today. You can usually hear her over on the YouTube channel, the name of which is Algo Rhythm. The guy that hosts there, Algo Rhythm, he's been on the show here, he's been a guest, he's called into the show as well. He's in Colorado, but he's got a co-host who's here with me today, Felisha, and we are getting into all things missing 411. Now, we've still got so much more to get into, but I'm not ready to move on yet because we're still trying to kind of work out what could be going on with these weird and wonderful type cases of people strangely disappearing. Sometimes you hear of families out camping. 1 minute they're around the campfire, grandpa will wander off to maybe relieve himself and talking 1 minute. Maybe a minute later, somebody says, "What happened to Grandpa?" "Oh, he just went over there." Okay, shouting Grandpa, no trace. Nothing. Gone. And this happens time and time and time again. Do you find that there's a lot of young people involved here, Felicia? Or is it a kind of broad range of ages, would you say?
It's a broad range of ages. I mean, you have anywhere from, 2 to 4-year-olds going missing, and from, anywhere in their 80s going missing, and a whole range in between. So it's really indiscriminatory from the looks of it.
Now, obviously with you being in Utah, we've got the Skinwalker Ranch, and we've got the story about the Utes and the Navajo. The Americans, the Native Americans, Paleo Americans as my brother Kevin calls them, rightly so. I'm definitely going to adopt that term. But they look at mountains, Felicia, as stargates. In fact, they hold mountains, some of them, in very high regard. Indeed, they worship to them. I don't know if worship's the right word, but they are very magical, spiritual places. And again, I wonder if it's to do with these subtle energies that's produced in the rock that makes the mountains in the first place. Maybe the rock that some of these forests are sitting on. I think the Native Americans, if they're pointing towards these mountains as being almost portals to other worlds, I think maybe we should definitely include that in some of our candidates, shall we say, for what's happening in these cases. Do you think?
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. A lot of people, they believe that certain rocks and crystals and stuff have certain, whether it be powers or properties that can assist people or assist themselves with certain things. So I don't feel like that's very far off at all.
Yeah, it's always been in my mind if that plays into it. Now, you said when you were listening or you were watching this documentary, from what I've read anyway, it seems to be more a North American type phenomenon as opposed to being all over the world. I mean, we do get some strange disappearances over here, but nothing like what we're talking about in America. So in the documentary, does it mention anywhere else in the world where there's maybe been an uptick in these type of disappearances?
They don't really go into, yeah, that as much. I mean, they had mentioned that, it does happen in other parts of the world, but it just seems to be super, highly concentrated in North America. And they were, of course, focusing on the United States in particular, because I believe, Canada, of course, as well has a lot of these, but it just seems to be highly concentrated in these national forests in America here.
Yeah, Canada, I mean, some of the landscapes you see there are absolutely stunning, and I can understand how maybe it would happen there. Just vast areas full of forest and mountains, and it's like Scotland on steroids. That's what I always think when I think of Canada. It's got bigger mountains, bigger trees, bigger everything, But if we stick on these weird types of mountain events, I think that takes us nicely to something else that you're interested in. And it's something that I was talking about just yesterday over on YouTube. And it's the Dyatlov Pass incident, which happened in, now correct me if I'm wrong, Felicia, I think we're going back to 1953, would that be correct?
I believe so, yes, that does sound correct.
So, what's your take on this Dyatlov Pass? I mean, we've got a bunch of hikers who are up there. They're in Siberia. They're up the mountainside. Take it from there. What do you recall as being the story of what happened to these hikers, Felicia?
It all seemed normal, really, up until you get to some of these, these, what do you want to call it? The injuries that they received. Yeah. So, I mean, some of it's just weird. I mean, from the fact that they cut their tent open from the inside, which I think that's the first thing that just set me off. Like, why? There's no reason you would do that. Unless they're trying to get away from something very quickly inside their tent that spooks them enough to make them run out into the freezing cold.
Exactly. I mean, you think about that. I mean, you nailed it there. The fact that it's so freezing cold. I mean, what causes anyone to be in such a panic where you rip your way out of a tent? And, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're in varying kind of states of clothing. Some people don't even have socks or shoes on. I mean, I don't know. That's got to be something unprecedented, because from what I can gather and what I can remember, these were experienced hikers, right? Or at least some of them were. And again, it's like the hunters, they're used to hiking, they're used to being in the mountains. So what on earth's name is it that's so out of the ordinary that caused that to happen? It's a weird one, right?
It is. And I remember reading about one particular theory as to what could have freaked them out is that due to the way that these mountains are shaped, I guess the wind can blow off, could possibly have blown in such a way that made a sound that was just not only terrifying, but possibly like damaging as well, causing them to be severely disoriented. And that was the one theory that I was like, okay, I could get behind this. I mean, out of all the theories, but that's one that I could definitely get behind because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I could definitely keep an open mind on that one for sure. Yeah. Just here it says, journalists reporting on the available parts of the inquest files claim, and these are some of the kind of key points. 6 of the members died of hypothermia and 3 of fatal injuries. Now, there was no indications of other people nearby on Kholat Syakhl, apart from the 9 travellers. And like Felisha said here, the tent had been ripped from within. Just think about that. I don't know what causes that panic, unless it's something in your head. Maybe it's something in their actual head. So the victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Traces from the camp showed that All group members left the campsite of their own accord, on foot. High levels of radiation were found on only one victim's clothing. So to dispel the theory of an attack by the indigenous Mansi people, the investigator stated that the fatal injuries of the 3 bodies could not have been caused by human beings, because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. Released documents contained no information about the condition of the skier's internal organs, and there were 0 survivors. You know, that one person having radiation on them, Felisha, I mean, where did that come from?
Yeah, that is very odd. A couple of theories I remember hearing about was, one, they were, it's possible that it was a Russian military experimentation that was going on nearby. Or, of course, there's always the idea of aliens, making a visit on them. So, I mean, especially when you look at how these injuries of that three of the people had gotten, that they could not have been caused by humans. I mean, that just begs the question.
Yeah, it definitely begs the question. Now, I've been very open to the whole the military aspect of things as well. Whether that does play a part in it or not, I don't know. And of course, with it being the 50s, Russia, old Soviet Russia, that report, we probably have to take everything in that with a grain of salt, right? Because for all we truly know, Felisha, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but a genuine kind of unbiased investigation into that might have reported that these people were, just for argument's sake, full of AK-47 rounds or something. You know what I'm saying? It could be a massive cover-up that we're looking at here. Something to do with the Russian military. And that takes me on to the other Dyatlov Pass case that I've been talking about recently on the show. And I had no idea that there'd been another case, and it was in the 90s. I'm just going to dig up the actual thing right now. Give me 2 seconds. I don't have it on hand. Here we go. I'll find it here. But did you know there'd been another similar event?
No.
Yeah, exactly. This was a new one on me as well, I must admit. Let me just get this link here. Scroll down. I know it's here somewhere. There it is. Okay. Now, I done a stream on this yesterday, but I think it's worth going over again. It's not massively long, but it ties in, or I feel it definitely has echoes, similarities, commonalities, call it what you will. You'll see what I mean, because it says here that in the summer of 1993, 6 hikers died in the Siberian mountains suffering from violent, unexplained symptoms. One young girl lived to tell the tale. It says on August the 5th, 1993, a small Siberian hiking expedition led by a hiking expert, Ms. Korovina, came to a tragic end on the slopes of Hamar Dabin mountain range. 6 out of the 7 members of the young group had passed away under mysterious, violent circumstances. Sound familiar so far, Felisha? It says, in a matter of minutes they collapsed in spasms, suffering from profuse bleeding from their noses and mouths, and their senses had abandoned them, and they could not flee, and the members of the group all stumbled and met their demise on the unforgiving mountainside, all but one. Now it goes on to list the people involved, and it says the group consisted mostly of teenagers, struck out on the morning of August the 2nd, and they were not the only hiking group travelling that route at the same time. There was 2 groups, and one was led by Ludmila Korovina, and the other by her daughter. Now the groups led by the mother and daughter planned to meet up at the bottom of the pass. Good weather was predicted for the expeditions, but get this, they unexpectedly found themselves dealing with an on and off freezing rain and snow showers. Inconvenient, sure, but not likely to kill anyone. So there you go, Felicia. We're not even into it, and we see it's got the weird weather kicking in already, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, trust me, you're gonna. I don't want to say you're gonna like this because this is so weird. It says the route started on August the 2nd, departing from Marino, and the group crossed the Langute Gates Gorge, climbed the highest mountain in the range called Canulu, and walked to the watershed plateau of the Anigta and Bega rivers. So in total, that's 70 kilometers. And then 2 days later, the group paused between the peaks of Follets Yangeli, or Yangelni, and Tritons. They chose to camp on a slope roughly 4 kilometers from the forest's edge. It was an odd place for them to choose, completely uncovered, offering no shelter from the bad weather. And why did Korovina, an experienced instructor, allow this? So during the night, the group endured a violent thunderstorm, and on the morning of the 5th, a fresh sheet of snow had fallen on the mountain range, and weather conditions were very poor. The group of 7 began their uneasy descent down the mountain slope, but only minutes into the trek, the oldest and the strongest of the male hikers, called Alexander, was struck down. Started bleeding heavily from the nose, the ears, the mouth, and in moments he had passed away. Now the other hikers were aghast. Korovina ordered her group to continue down the slope as quickly as possible, and she herself chose to remain alongside Sasha Krissen's body. Ludmilla was a lifelong friend of the boy, having shared a close bond. It goes on just basically to say about her relationship with them. Then the hikers descended a short distance down the slope, but doubled back when Korovina called to them for help. She could not move either. However, when they found her again, their hiking instructor was also passing away. Reports vary. She either perished of a heart attack or the same mysterious symptoms that had got Krissen. So it was all panic descended on the group, along with the same inexplicable symptoms. The remaining hikers quickly developed the same symptoms. 2 of the girls in the group collapsed, tearing at their clothes and twitching. The group's lone survivor described, quote, Dennis began to hide behind the rocks and run away, and Tatiana was banging her head against the stones. Victor and Timur probably went mad. And when she tried to recover Victoria Zalasova, one of the youngest of the group, the girl bit her. So this is some weird stuff going on right here, Felicia. I mean, what are you making of this so far?
That's just weird. It almost, it almost sounds like, they always do movies about people going crazy and starting to mutilate themselves and others. It just, I don't know. It's weird. That is really, really weird.
Yeah, and it says here, by the time she had made it to the bottom of the mountain, she was alone and nearly unconscious. She hid in the shelter of the woods all night long and during bad weather. The next morning it was calm. A weakened Valentina travelled back up the slope to find her friends, and she was confronted by a scene of horror. Bodies lay everywhere, all overcome by their mysterious illness. Some reports state that Ludmilla Ivanova was still alive, dying, but able to direct Valentina where to go in order to save her own life. The more often reported and most likely scenario is that Ludmilla was already dead along with the rest of her young group. Now, traumatized and suffering from severe shock, Valentina could only go on alone. She wandered the woods, searching for rescue for 3 days. And by the time she emerged back into civilization, she could speak to no one and respond to nothing. And one of the members of the recovery team said it was a scary picture, The hikers were all lying on a small ledge, some huddled together, some a distance away, and they had no eyes. In the empty sockets and parted mouths there was beasties and really gross. We packed them into the bags, and you can imagine it was just absolutely horrendous. Now, according to the autopsy, it gets even weirder. Hypothermia played a role in their deaths, and the bodies appeared to suffer from protein deficiency despite having eaten well during the trip, and bruising of the lungs. What had caused their intense illness in the first place, and what had caused such violent fits? What killed young, healthy Sasha Christen in a matter of seconds and overcame the rest of the group shortly thereafter? It says that sounds like something out of a horror film. There's links that go along with it. Seems like a genuine case, and for me, every bit, maybe even weirder than the historic Dyatlov Pass case. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the first hiker to get seemingly struck down and, you know, just begin bleeding from the nose like that. I mean, I don't know. That's weird. It made me immediately think of, I've heard of different people, you know, having encounters with something that they felt was an invisible force, not necessarily like ghost or paranormal type, but maybe like alien or predator kind of type, you know, behavior, like from the movie where they're camouflaged. And I don't know, it's just, what could it be? So you kind of start looking at the other stuff. You know?
Your guess is as good as mine. We could look at the military side of things again. Are they playing about with sonic weapons, energy weapons, exotic type weapons that we've never heard of before? I know our good friend Polly, somebody very knowledgeable in plants and fungi and stuff like that, he made a good shout. You know, this could have been some toxin that they came into contact with, Felisha. Might have taken hours to kick in, start working. There's a whole host of things this could be. But that case, I mean, that is really one of the strangest ones I've come across in a long time. It really is. A total head scratcher, you know?
Yeah, that is. And it's, and you know, it just makes you think those mountains, you know, it's a second case where super strange things have happened and a whole group of people have died. Something definitely, yeah, whether it's military or, you know, or otherwise, it's that doesn't bode well, and it kind of makes you wonder if it is military, you know, why are they targeting? Why is this the place they chose to target? Unless it was just for convenience, or you know, why haven't they tested more? If they are conducting tests, and that's what I would wonder.
Yeah, there was a famous case in, I want to say, South Korea. It was over Asia anyway, but they call it the Frog Boys. And this was a bunch of children who went away playing up a hill again. Funnily enough, massive search ensued. I think it was 5 boys. One boy stayed at home. He decided not to go up the hill. It took them years, absolutely years, to find the children, unfortunately. And when they did, they were pretty much in the location that had been searched from the very beginning. And I know one of the very strong theories that had been going around in the country was that the hill that they were on was sometimes an area close to where they would do military exercises. And they don't know if maybe the lads got caught up in some kind of military firing operation, some live firing, something like that. But that's definitely military involvement. It can't be ruled out in any of these cases. But
Right.
maybe you're, well, I can't speak for you, but my mind still tends to lean towards, when it's something as extraordinary as the Dyatlov Pass, as the case we just done there, missing 411 as well, it's going to require something extraordinary to be at the center of it, right? And for me, military, yeah, it could answer some of them. But not all of these weird cases. And Skinwalker Ranch, but let's head closer to home for you now, because this has got everything that we're talking about. You've got a place where it sounds like a natural portal, where things of this world, or not of this world, are able to come back and forth. You've got UFOs reported, you've got ghosts, you've got the literal skinwalker as well. And I'll get your take on this because you're from the area, but it's always nagging at the back of my mind whether there could be one of these deep underground military bases in the area as well. And if that's the case, you know, all of the talk that people like me and others do about Skinwalker, we're actually doing the military-industrial complex a big favour, because we're probably talking about all of the stuff that has got nothing to do with the weirdness on Skinwalker, and maybe a lot of it could be to do with the military. But I want to talk to you. What's your take on Skinwalker? We talked about it briefly at the start, but let's get into that there. I mean, what, go for it. Take it away. Skinwalker. What does it mean to you, Felisha?
You know, it's always been an anomaly. Normally, I come up with a certain theory on a lot of these. I mean, you know, on what I kind of think with Skinwalker, it's a bit of an anomaly just because of how much activity is going on there and all the different things that have happened. And something that I found very interesting is that, you know, it's actually not that far away from Roswell, New Mexico, and Area 51. And they kind of make a triangle of sorts. Like when you see them on the map, they kind of make a bit of a triangle. And it makes you wonder if maybe they are kind of connected to a certain extent, or if maybe it's just kind of coincidence.
Hold that thought, hold that thought. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 on today's Kev Baker Show with our special guest, Felisha. You can find her over on Algo Rhythm, the YouTube channel, Algo Rhythm. She co-hosts with Algo Rhythm, aka Mike, and I'm sure he won't mind me giving that much away. But I'm really enjoying the conversation we're having here. And of course, we have steered back towards my favourite place. I've got a few places that I could go to as my top locations for woo. Loch Ness, obviously, one of them. The Skinwalker Ranch, definitely up there. Definitely up there. I see Luna tuning in as well down in Australia. Our Australian listeners. Lots of good woo down there as well. But Skinwalker Ranch, I tell you, Felisha, it's got it all. It's got the UFOs. It's got alleged portals. There's people that have actually talked about looking into parallel worlds. You've got the big Skinwalker. You've got a whole host of other things going on. You've got black helicopters. You've got the men in black. You were saying before the break, it's not exactly a million miles from Roswell. And something that I became aware of that I didn't know before watching The Curse of Skinwalker Ranch, and I fingers crossed there's a season 2 of that. But the fact that when they were testing the A-bombs and things in New Mexico, Nevada deserts, places like that, the way that the wind travelled, it actually took some of that kind of material and deposited it on the lands over Utah, and smack bang where you find this Skinwalker Ranch it's in a basin of some sorts. Is it the Ute Basin, Utah Basin? But that in itself, when you look at it, actually makes the place look like it could be a naturally formed or some kind of concave kind of curve, almost like a natural satellite dish built into the landscape. There's so much going on there, and of course, add to that the potential for underground bases. So let me come back to you, Felicia. As you can tell, I'm always excited when we get to this place. There's so many different directions we could take it. But before the break, before we got rudely interrupted by the break music there, you were just getting into this close proximity to Roswell, and I'm going to hand it back to you. Tell us more.
Yes. So, I mean, it's really close to Roswell and Area 51, and I believe, in my opinion, that's pretty interesting
Yeah.
since, everyone knows the story of Roswell, and then Area 51. I mean, that's just the talk of so many, different alien type of woo that you could get into. And how the government is really involved in all of that. And so it just makes you wonder if they really are connected in any way or if it's just coincidence.
Do you think a lot of the activity around Skinwalker is connected to the legend, the story of the curse, literally, that was put on there by... Now, you might... maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but I think it was the Navajo that cursed the area. Maybe I'm wrong there. Am I right? Is it the Navajo that put the kind of curse of the Skinwalker on the land?
I am not sure if it was the Navajo or the Utes.
Yeah, I know that because they were fighting
Yeah.
each other, right? And I think one side kind of sold out, didn't they? And they sold the other side out. We've got Nacy. I'm sure Nacy will help us out with this one. Yeah, the Navajo. Yeah, thank you, King. I thought it was the Navajo. That's right. So do you think that a lot of the activity is still kind of connected to that curse that was put on the land, or do you think there's more to it than that?
I'm not 100% sure. I would put money on that it's kind of a combination. Um, I mean, I think when you look at everything that's going on there, I just feel like that it has to be a little bit more than just possibly the curse because of everything that just happens there all the time. I mean, not just the paranormal, extraterrestrial sense, but you have a lot of the paranormal ghost and that type of those type of things happening as well. Which
Did you watch the recent show that was on History?
I haven't. I really need to.
Oh, you need to. Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Oh, you're going to enjoy that. Really enjoy it, but it's going to leave you wanting more. The fact that they're even doing a TV show there, it's quite surprising to me. Only because when you look at the history of it, it wasn't that long ago that it was Robert Bigelow that owned the property, Bigelow Aerospace, and of course he's connected to the Pentagon through the ATIP program, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identity Program, all of that disclosure type stuff that's coming out of To the Stars Academy. And when Bigelow had it, Felicia, that this place was like Fort Knox. Nobody could get in there, nobody got near it. He was doing testing, scientific testing. He set up an actual thing called NIDS. I think it was the National Institute for the Discovery of Science. And all of the kind of scientific testing that they'd done. George Knapp, a reporter, he wrote a book about it. But from what I can believe, well, from what I've been led to believe, 90% of what Bigelow and the team found or were recording on the ranch, 90% of that's classified. We've never seen the full report. But we've seen handcrafted, picked out bits that George Knapp gave us, and that's no criticism on him. But this is where it gets weird for me, because then only a couple of years later, you've got this new guy comes to town, Brandon Fugel, and I love him. He looks a really cool guy. Could all be for TV, I get that. But he's got this open attitude that Skinwalker, if there's something going on there, then the world should know about it. Now, it's a really refreshing attitude. I hope he's everything that he says he is. But it's that change. If the government were so keen to keep things quiet when Bigelow had it, what's changed between him having it and this guy buying it off him? The government aren't interested in us finding out all of a sudden. So that's why I'm a bit kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on it. I don't know if the TV shows a bit of soft disclosure if they're playing into the whole to the Stars Academy kind of soft disclosure type thing, if it's connected to the Pentagon. You see a black helicopter literally in the show, and you find out that that is actually spooks. One of the people there on the show, he works with the Department of Defense, and he's like, yeah, I got contacted. Literal men in black, you know, contacting them on the show. So that adds to the weirdness about the place for me, Felisha. It really, really does. And I'd strongly encourage you to try and check that show out.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I will for sure. I find it interesting because I wonder if they just learned pretty much all they felt like they could learn, or they got the information they were looking for, and maybe that's why, you know, they stopped their investigations.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it, isn't it? That they got what they wanted. Have at it now. Show people what's there. It could be a whole host of things, couldn't it? Again, I'm a bit wary, only because it just feels like that show, and I'm not going to give spoilers, I've talked about it already, but it's like it gave us too much. It's like it was evidence after evidence of all the type of stuff that we're talking about here today, Felisha, on a mainstream TV show. And they're being quite nonchalant about it, you know, and season 2, they're like, yeah, we'll just try and establish first contact with whatever is above, on, and under Skinwalker. Just like that, you know, drop it in the conversation. We're going to get first contact with an alien on a TV show.
Right.
Weird,
yeah, and
right?
it is kind of weird because you think that if you know there really are actual spooks, men in black, you know, patrolling the area, they have to be keeping an eye on it. And if that's the case, I just feel like they probably wouldn't give us all the information. You know, some of it.
Yeah, you think about that case we looked at, not the Dyatlov Pass, but the other one where, in fact, it might have been the Dyatlov Pass. It was one of them had radiation on them. Skinwalker, you get spikes in radiation in some of the locations. I don't know, maybe these spikes in radiation might be an indication, it might be a sign of some unknown phenomena that we don't even know about yet, you know? So much good woo that you can get into, whether it's the Dyatlov Pass, Skinwalker, Loch Ness, whatever, you know?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And you know that they kind of have to be connected because if you have, you know, men in black keeping their eyes on the place. I mean, with all the missing 411 cases, the FBI they were always, not always, but oftentimes they were involved, and they would check out these cases. So just
See, that
to
in
me,
itself,
it seems,
that's weird, isn't it? I mean, why would they bother if it's just like somebody going missing, you know?
yeah, and that they talk about that a lot in the documentary, and in a bunch of cases, you know, they do show up, they do their own investigation. You never hear what their findings are. They just come, do their thing, and leave. And to me, it seems like that they're gathering information and trying to figure out the puzzle just as much as we are. But you know, they probably, there's probably a whole branch, almost like X-Files probably type branch where people are actually, you know, looking into this type of weird
Felisha,
phenomenon.
they need to be coming to people like me and you. We would happily take that job on, right? What a
Oh
job
yeah.
that would be, going out and investigating all these weird and wonderful woo stories. You mentioned Roswell there. Aliens, UFOs, I mentioned it a couple of times when we were talking Skinwalker there. Where do you come into the picture on aliens then? Do you think they're all good? Do you think they're all bad? Do you think they're all from this universe? Are they interdimensional? Could they be time travelers? I'm just throwing as many things out there. What do you think, Felisha?
Well, I think they exist, but you know, it could be a whole range of things because, and I'm really open to any of it being a possibility, just because I have no idea. But I do believe that they exist, and I do believe that the government is aware of them. And you know, whether they've worked with us or not, I don't know if they would 100% be, you know, malevolent, because I don't know. You think about a really high tech group of intelligence, and if they really wanted to hurt us, they probably could have by now. If anything, they're probably here to study us, or maybe just keep an eye on what's going on. Maybe
That's what I think. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, how would it go down? You know, I've always, when I was younger, I used to think, you know, there was probably a base somewhere, where they work together. You know, you've probably got aliens and some alphabet agency we've never even heard of. They've probably never been above ground in 50 years. Used to think that. Then as I got older and a little bit wiser, well, I hope I got wiser, some would argue, I would think, and this is bad, but I think most people, when you sit and think about it, you're going to unfortunately agree with me. You know, the first thing we would want to do if that scenario presented itself to anyone in government, wherever they are, us being us, we would want to examine the hell out of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we would
Absolutely.
want to capture them, we would want to study them. Because, I mean, we're the best things in the universe, right? Look at us, we're so great. I wonder if it went down like that. I wonder if we missed an opportunity at some point, Felisha. Now, what do you think about if we go way back, ancient alien times? Ancient Aliens, one of my favourite shows. It ends up everything's ancient aliens in it, though, so that makes me giggle sometimes. But where do you come in on that? Do you think they were here when the pyramids and things were in their glory?
I mean, I definitely think it's a possibility. It's, it's just at the time and for these great structures to be built. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it definitely
But it's a stretch.
seems like it's help. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely, I'm
Seems
with
like
you
they
there.
had somehow.
And again, I think it goes back to that, the stones again, right? I think there's something more powerful, something more almost machine-like about rocks, only we've forgotten about it. Over the centuries, over the millennia, that knowledge has been drummed out of us, and it's probably been occulted away. Probably somewhere in the Vatican Library there's a book that tells you all what rocks can do and their powers, and probably negative stuff that they can do as well. But where did we get that knowledge from to lose in the first place? And I often, and again, it's not to say you believe this as well, but me personally, it's got to be an option that we got that information from some outside source. Even if it was channeled, whether they were here or not physically, you could make a case for it. You see all these ancient texts and paintings, and even some would say stories in the Bible that relate to UFOs. So maybe we've always had this kind of interaction. But again, like you said, there's almost something scientific to them. And it makes you wonder if we are just, and it's not to put us down, but if we are in some way just one of their experiments, you know?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. When you think about it that way, and one of the things that I kind of put together is with these missing 411 cases, a lot of the times they happen to have some sort of disability or illness. And to me, that kind of triggered the idea of, well, perhaps, if we are an experiment, or if they are observing us, perhaps they are taking people who have these types of illnesses and disabilities to study out them further, or glean some sort of information off of these people. I mean, if that's a possibility. It was just an interesting thing that I came across, and it kind of made me wonder on that, because you can't rule anything out unless you absolutely know, right?
And it's the Kev Baker show. We never rule anything out. Even when it's been ruled out, we still don't rule it out. But we're kind of, I'm going to really, it's almost like an interrogation you're going through here today. I'm just trying to fit in as many topics as we can. Have you seen any UFOs yourself, Felicia? Have you ever seen anything like that?
There was one specific time that I am fairly certain that I did.
Now,
And it was...
You've gone dead quiet again. Maybe it's just, try talking again.
Oh, sorry. Can you? Is this better?
It's a little bit quiet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. I have my mic turned all the way up,
Okay,
so.
that's it now. It seems to have gone back up a bit now. Maybe it was just my ears. There you go. Yeah, people are saying it's back now. All good, Felicia. We're good.
And the place that I ended up going was actually kind of close. It was in the same county as Skinwalker Ranch. So I think that might be connected. So like I wasn't super close to Skinwalker Ranch, but I was in the same county and in the mountains. I had gone up there. We were doing some camping in this remote part of the Uinta Mountains area, and I just saw this bright light just come up over the mountain ridge, and it was just really kind of crazy. It was kind of scary in the sense of like you know you don't know what's going to happen or if anything's going to happen, but it was just kind of otherworldly. And
That's where a lot
the
of these UFOs get seen, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it stayed and it hung out in the air and like it was kind of moving a little bit, but it was staying pretty still. And people they've asked me, well, are you sure it wasn't a star? I'm like, well, no, it definitely wasn't. I'm pretty familiar with the night sky and with some of the things that do come up. I'm not 100% um, well versed, but I'm pretty versed in knowing where certain things are in the sky and where they should be. And it is something I'd never seen before, and it was bright, like just so bright. And it was just kind of crazy. The moment I ended up looking away and turned my back to, and I think I was trying to look for my phone, my camera, and it was gone. So,
Whoa, that's typical, isn't it?
yep,
Yep.
yeah,
That's like my friend
and
Clyde Lewis. I say
hmm
he's my friend, but he calls me Dave. I need to sort that out. But I remember when he went Bigfoot hunting one time, and they'd spent all weekend, you know, going out and about, walking kilometre after kilometre. And the final morning, he gets up, you know, no Bigfoot to show for his time there, blisters on the feet, and probably laying it on a bit thick. But there he was having a cup of tea somewhere, and he's looking out over the back, and there it was, woof, just crossed right in front of his vision. He swears it was a Bigfoot, but like you're saying there, you know, he didn't even have his phone on him, nothing. So all he's got is this story about
yeah,
something he's seen physically with his own eyes. But you know, this happened the other day. There was a story from Loch Ness. It was a young lad and his wife had seen something. And like you said there, the event only went on for 20 seconds or so. And he was so kind of aghast at what he was witnessing. The last thing on his mind when he was watching this at the start was get my phone. And by the time he thought of getting his phone, it had gone. And for me, there might not be any evidence to kind of back up what that guy was talking about. But sometimes you can just get a gut feeling. You can tell when somebody has seen something out of the ordinary. I don't know. So for me, whether there's a picture or not, sometimes pictures. It's so easy to debunk everything nowadays. I sometimes wonder if we debunk genuine pictures as well, because we really don't know what we're looking at. So sometimes, Felicia, it's better not to have the picture, just to have that first-hand story, you know?
oh yeah, I agree because yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. I mean, we do go around, and even if it has been, proven to be undoctored, lots of people still, don't believe in it anyway. So, what's better than a story? So, that you can share. So, I just can't, you can only do with what you got.
Exactly, exactly. Now, algorithm's panicking in case I steal his co-host. I can assure you, Algo, that's not going to happen, brother. This has been a great show so far. We've still got a segment to go, and I knew, like I said to you, Algo, first time I heard you and Felicia together, great show, and I knew that this would be a night full, absolutely full with woo. So before we go to the break, you mentioned Roswell. We're talking aliens. What do you reckon happened there? Weather balloon, swamp gas, aliens. Where do you come in on it?
Aliens.
Yeah.
I think it is. And I read this book, you know, and I wish I had it written down to tell you which book it was. But I can find it and send it to you later. But I was reading this book of this guy's account who was supposedly, you know, with the military, and it was kind of his account of things that had happened in Roswell, among many other things. And he just went on to talk about how, you know, it really was aliens. So, you know, take that for what it is. But I mean, the guy, you know, you can look up his credentials, and he's worked in the Pentagon, and so I think he's pretty legit. And but yeah, I mean, he spoke of it as an actual spaceship, you know, extraterrestrial spaceship, and I just, you know, it's the only thing that seems to make the most sense to me, regardless of his accounts, just because, you know, we know it's not a weather balloon. It's never a weather balloon.
Never a weather balloon. I totally agree with you there. Now, the other night, I've heard this before, don't get me wrong, but it seemed to sink in more the other night. And it's when I had Ken Me on the show, and he was talking about how wasn't long after Jack Parsons and Hubbard had been trying to open portals in the desert, 1947, that Roswell happened, you know, not long after that. And it really got me thinking, it got me wondering, you know, are we literally talking about a portal that was opened that could have allowed through the aliens that you're talking about, Felisha? And we've got 2 minutes before we go to break here. I'll pass that to you, and I'll also ask you as well. Do you think all aliens are bad, like some people say, or do you think there's good ones and bad ones, like humans and other species? So, what do you make of that?
Well, I think there's probably good and bad. But if they are more advanced, it probably would be more likely that they're not necessarily bad in a malevolent sort of wanting to hurt humans type way. Um, but I mean, I feel like they're more neutral than anything. I don't know if they necessarily want to really help or hinder us either way. Though
It's like
they
Star
probably,
Trek, right? They can't really interfere.
yeah,
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 yeah. I like that idea as well.
I would think. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things where it's like it seems they have helped us. So I don't know. You know, but does that make them necessarily good, or are they helping for other motives? So
As long as they're not probing me, that's that's number one on my list. I'll happily go on the ship with them. They just got to promise me, and I know they could be lying, but hey, I'm a trusting sort. So we've got one segment left, and when we come back after the break, we're going deep woo. We're going into the ghosts, the goblins, the woo. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. One more segment to go on today's Kev Baker show. And don't forget, Lucky is coming up after the break with Quantum Connections. Now, that there during the break, that's everything that TFR's about, right? Real people, real radio. And that's how I ended up on here. I was a listener to Chris and Cherie. They ended up finding out I had a YouTube channel. Now, I'm going to reconnect things because there's a... Hang on, there's... like, Felisha, I'm going to call you back, okay?
sounds good.
Here we go. I'll hang up here. Wow, that's getting really, really hissy. Really hissy. Hang on now. There we go. No, I'm going to hang up and start again, folks. There we go. I'm back. Sorry about that, everyone. Skype was going really crazy there. Like, as in really crazy. So hopefully that's it fixed now. You can all hear me perfectly, loud and clear. And like I was saying during the break there, it said real people, real radio. And that's how I ended up on TFR. I used to subscribe to Chris and Cherie back in the day. When they were setting out on their radio adventure. And I remember listening to their show, and they were all about opening the phones up, bringing people onto the show that they got to know through the show. And it's something I've tried to continue in my own vein here when I got a chance on the network. We've seen how somebody like Nano Girl has been with me from near enough the start. And, you know, before Nano came on the Kev Baker show, you know, she was just like the rest of us, just researching, just doing her own thing, had her own opinion on things. That's what I love about TFR. Because, yeah, we get big names on here. We try our hardest to get the biggest names on, the best guests. But for me, sometimes, the best guests and the best shows come from people who nobody's heard from before. Real people, real radio, and KBS. We keep it real. And today, I tell you what, we have unearthed a nugget of gold, haven't we? Talk about gold and woo coming from our good friend Felisha. And Felisha, tell people when you and Algo Rhythm, when you usually stream, how they can listen to you, and any social media or anything like that that you want to give out. Because I understand some people don't want to give that out, but I think people would be interested to follow the kind of stories that you're looking at.
Of course. I stream with Algo. We generally do Thursdays about once a week, sometimes every other week, give or take. You know, depends on the schedule. So you'll see me on his channel often, Algo and then space Rhythm, and you can find him on YouTube. And currently, you can find me on any of the Discords. If you find me on KBS Discord, that would be one of the best places to find me and talk to me there. I will be starting my own channel soon, but that'll be up in the makings coming shortly. So.
Well, I have just dropped Algo Rhythm's channel over at tfrlive.com. I've put it in Disco. I'm going to share it out at the end of the show. I'll put it in the show notes as well. Before we even launch back into it, in case I forget because I get too excited, thank you for your time today. You have been an absolute star. Honestly, it's like working with somebody who's been doing this for years. Perfect. I can't think of a better guest to have on. So thank you for today. I hope you've had a good time, and I hope we continue to get into good woo here in the last segment, because I want to ask you about ghosts, Ouija boards, all of that kind of weird and wonderful stuff, because we talk about it a lot on the show. What do you make of the whole ghost thing? Are they dead relatives that are hanging around, or do you think it's something more nefarious playing tricks on us? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a combination. I think we have ghosts, which are, you know, whether you want to call it remnant energy of people who have passed on. But I also believe there's other entities that are not necessarily, the same as people past, but whether it be negative entities, people like to call them demons, or, you know, a combination, which I think that's what poltergeists are, is a possible combination of different energies and entities. So I think you kind of have a wide range, in my personal opinion. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You know, this is where it kind of gets hard for me, because I love the whole paranormal thing. Love watching ghost hunting. I've done a little bit of it myself, as you've probably heard, up at Aleister Crowley's house. But it's how do you test what it is that's on the other side? I'm absolutely... Nobody needs to convince me that there's something there. They definitely interact with us at times. Sometimes it goes all wrong. And we hear about Bill Bean, the kind of things that he has to go and sort out. Then other times, you know, you can have like a ghost in a house, but it's almost like the living and whatever that spirit is, it can coexist. doesn't turn into some poltergeist type craziness that you see in the horror movies, or like some of the cases that poor Bill's worked on. Lydia, last night as well, she was on open mic with Polly. She was going over her story again. You're talking about people getting physically bruised, and it's not, you know, just people hearing like floorboards creaking, or, you know, a door slamming. I know some people try to write it all off as that. I think that's really, really offensive to people that are victims of the paranormal, the supernatural, because they definitely, these things are real, but it's that testing them that really gets me, Felisha. How do you know what you're messing with, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a very valid question, and one that I don't have an answer to necessarily, but I have my own theory on it.
Oh, we
Just
like
with what I
theories. We like theories. On you go. Go for it. We want your theory.
So it's just kind of been on my own experiences, and you can, at least in my own experience, you can kind of tell. You can tell when it's something nefarious. You can tell when it's something that's just kind of passing through or hanging out, means no harm. So, but as far as what it is, I mean, things that are generally pretty, that give you that gut feeling, to me.
Yes, yes, yes.
That sinking, you know, scared, you know, that type of feeling. That's, to me, I you know, use the simple term as demon, but, you know, I don't think it's necessarily like a, you know, devil with horns type demon that we are so used to hearing about, you know.
I'm the same as you. I think there's various different names for the same thing, but like you're saying, like I think you're saying here, maybe we don't really have a concept of what it is, you know. We kind of, we either picture it as demonic, or if you're Islamic, it would be the jinn. We put characteristics on it as opposed to us truly knowing what's there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because, you know, we can only explain it in the simple terms and words that we have available to us. But, you know, the simplest way is to use, you know, demons, ghosts, spirit, you know, that type of things.
So have you ever done ghost hunting yourself? Ouija boards, anything like that?
No, no, I haven't done. You know, I've thought about doing some ghost hunting, but I don't really need to for things to just pop up all the time. So I'm usually pretty set on most of the interactions I come into play with, and there's no way that I'll touch a Ouija board. Not that I necessarily think they're bad. It's just that, like, I truly believe you need to know what you're doing, and most people don't know what they're doing. And as soon as you have any as soon as you don't know what you're doing, and then you're playing with something and using a tool that can help you connect with those types of things, you're stepping into, you know, a world of letting things in that you never intended or wanted to. So
No,
I
I'm
don't
with
think
you.
they're bad, though.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I mean, I would never tell anybody what to do, and I'd be a bloody hypocrite. I used one when I was younger. I wouldn't say I would use one now, right enough. And again, that guest the other night, he made a good point. He was talking about how you get goodbye on a Ouija board. And that's great for us. Yeah, that ends it for us. But does that truly end anything? When you've opened a portal and you're communicating with something you don't even know what you're communicating with? I don't know. Like, I think you would agree with me. I mean, we wouldn't tell people what to do. I'm not even discouraging people. That's their path to walk. But I don't know, it's just when you're playing about with these hidden forces, these interdimensional, I mean, I don't even know where they come from. I don't know, it's just, I don't know if I'm too keen on messing with things where you don't really know what it is you're letting out the box, Felisha, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course. And that's how I feel. Yeah, I mean, everyone is free, you know, to do whatever you see fit. I just, my personal opinion is I'm just not going to, unless I 100% know what I'm doing. That would just be my own personal course of action, you know. So
I prefer to watch it on the telly. Yeah, the TV shows are great. You get that
Yeah.
little scary factor when there's a jumpy bit, but you know fine well you ain't taking any of that home with you. And that's really selfish, because the people in the investigation are obviously there, they're doing it, things like that. But Yeah, I'll definitely stick to watching it more on the TV than going to haunted houses like Crowley's again. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone, Felicia. Not any haunted house. Not nope nope nope.
Yeah, and I just feel like you start, when you're kind of exposed to those things, you end up, that's kind of already like you're permanently now affected, so you can, it's almost like that you're like a beacon in
Yep.
my personal opinion. So you're gonna have encounters now, probably for the rest of your life, most likely in certain ways, or be more attuned to things happening to you, possibly. So,
It's like paranormal Tinder, folks. Don't play it. Those ghosts ain't swiping right. I'm telling you. But you're right. You're right because you all of a sudden you elevate yourself to a position where you're almost wanting these things to come to you, and like you say, like a beacon. A brilliant way of describing it. Yeah, a light, like moths heading for the light. They're gonna head for you. They're gonna come your way. Whether you can control them or not, that's another question for sure. So, I'm trying to think, what else can I squeeze into tonight's weird woo fest that we've gone over? Anything that you want to squeeze in at all, Felicia? Any other topics you've got there?
oh man, no, I mean we've covered most of the
Okay, I've
well,
got
we've
more for
covered the
you.
main
Yeah,
topics.
don't you worry, I've got more for you because we've got Bigfoot. I haven't asked you about Bigfoot yet. Loch Ness Monster, all these types of things. Are you for the cryptids? Do you think it's maybe species we haven't discovered? What do you think? Where do you come in on that?
Yes, no, I love cryptids. Cryptids are so fun to read about and hear these experiences about.
And of course the Mothman. We can't forget the Mothman. It's now a new
Yes.
cryptid. Yes, indeed.
I don't know, I think there has to be a Bigfoot. There was this person that I was speaking to back. He would do a lot of ghost hunting, and he did a lot of Bigfoot hunting, and he is from here in Utah. And I went to one of his panels one time, and he was talking about his experiences, and he ran into these, certain different things that he thought were maybe like Skinwalker. He wasn't 100% sure, but he went on and on about these different sightings. And I mean, here in Utah, the Uinta Mountains, they are known for Bigfoot sightings. So, I see it as completely possible. In the Missing 411 Hunted series documentary, at the very end, they go into this story of this Sierra camp in Yosemite. And the people there, the two guys there, Ron Mothhead and Al Berry, I think.
Did you say his name is Mothhead?
No, Mauve. I think like
Ah,
Mave, or maybe
damn. It
it's.
sounded funnier when it was Mothhead. I apologize.
No, that would have been great. But it's really cool. They got recording of these sounds of this entity out there. The only thing that they could discern, because they took these recordings to get them analyzed professionally, and it was found that whatever the creature was, there was two of them at least, and they were making all these noises, and the only thing that could be conducted is that the tapes weren't fake or pre-recorded or anything like that, and also that the noise was coming from something larger than a man, so probably about 7-8 feet or so in size. So I mean, that right there is just makes you wonder. I mean, I think that has to be a Bigfoot of sorts.
I'm
And
with you there, yep.
so I think he's out there. And I've heard a lot of different theories, though, too. I mean, about him being interdimensional, and, because a lot of the times when they sight him, they see him with red eyes, and, and maybe that could possibly connect with him being an interdimensional being, being able to, go in and out, and that's why we've never been able to really have any solid evidence of finding him.
Damn, you bring the woo, Felisha. You bring the woo. I'm loving this. Now, I'm going for more topics. More topics yet. Black-eyed children. Now, they're some of the creepiest things I've ever come across. Luckily, I've never bumped into any. I don't think I would be around to tell anyone. In fact, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't make it home if I bumped into any of those creepy little things. But what do you think of that? Because that's one of the weirder ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard stories, and I don't know. Yeah, that's just weird to me. I mean, do you think that's some sort of possession?
I have no idea. I've gone from some kind of time traveler to something really, really evil that needs to be burnt all the way back to hell. I have no idea. Possession's a good one. I know over here in the UK, it's one of the rare times that somebody actually seen a black-eyed family. They were in one of the parks. Get this, near a national forest. I can't remember where it was. It was down in England somewhere. But they recalled seeing a boy and a girl and parents or people of parent age, and all black-eyed. I've got no idea. I've got no. I could give you like 3 to 4 or 5 different theories, but I have got no idea what's going on there. I really don't, Felisha. It's like they need to be invited in as well. Like, they're usually asking for something. Like vampires knocking on your door wanting an invite into your home. What is that all about?
Right.
And what would be the... Just, you know, what would be the incentive for people to make this up? I mean, it's not like anyone's getting rich and famous off a black-eyed child experience. Nobody's made a big film out of their story. I don't know, it just seems so out of the ordinary. But there's got to be a kernel of truth at the heart of it. And if that's the case, then what are we dealing with?
Right. And absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot that goes into it where I think it's true. Things do have to be invited in. But also, I mean, if you're, you know, I don't want to say naive, but if you aren't aware, you know, blissful ignorance doesn't always protect you, I think, in certain cases. And you can, in fact, invite something in unknowingly. And that might, I don't know, maybe that's what's going on. Because, I mean, that's happened to me where I had something follow me home one time, and it was just, you know, kind of terrorizing me in my house and the other people living there. And it wasn't something that I, like, willfully acknowledged to come in at all.
Okay,
you know,
now, hang on. We've got, like, 7 minutes remaining, and you're telling me you got followed home?
Well,
right, come on, let's get into it. Is this like some kind of entity? What happened here?
I think it was an entity. I was visiting someone who, you know, I was very close to at one time, and they had a lot of, I think, demons around them, you know, negative energies and stuff. And I think it was just me giving them a hug, and I wasn't really, like, aware of, like, needing to, like, I guess, protect myself, you could say. And the thing came home with me. And it was, well, I should say several things, because it was like one big thing and then a few smaller things, and they were all about the house. And I wasn't the only one who, you know, witnessed them there. The person I was living with at the time, they saw something, like, they had gotten up in the middle of the night and they were using the restroom, and they saw something come up the stairs. And you know, they weren't really ones to believe in this sort of thing, so you know, they kind of just were like, oh, that wasn't anything. But when they were telling me about it, I was like, yeah, so that's kind of scary.
How did you how did you overcome this? I mean, did it just stop, or?
I mean, it was kind of a lot of cleansing the space, trying to make sure that there was, you know, it was just a lot of trying to cleanse it.
How do you do it? Do you do that smudging thing, or is it?
Yeah, you can do smudging. You can do a lot of different things, like even playing like very positive music can help in these cases. And
I quite believe in that. Everything's vibration in the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it ended up leaving eventually, but it definitely took a lot of time. So
Look at you, look at you. You wait until, you know, 7, 8 minutes before the end of the show and then she opens up. Oh, I love it. Absolutely loving it. I'm glad you managed to get rid of that. I'm glad we managed to get that story out of you because I think that really, that brought everything that we've talked about tonight to kind of a really positive end. I know that sounds weird because you had entities with you, but that message there, you know, the music, the positive music, the smudging. What other advice would you give to people? And I know you're not like some expert in all of this, Felisha, but to me, you sound like somebody who really knows what they're talking about. Especially when it comes to this positive side of things. And listen, we're all about solutions here. 9 times out of 10, I'm adding to people's problems. So any chance I get, I like to hand it over to people. And yeah, anyone, I mean, any other tips you can give people?
My one other tip is that, well, a couple, but the one big thing is try not to get too freaked out. In my experience, I've noticed it just exacerbates the issue and causes it to be worse. And stand firm if you feel if you can be and exude some confidence and exude, you know, a bit of authority, to where, you know, you're like, this is my space. Nothing is allowed in this space. You know, you can oftentimes take power over your area. And that really helps, in addition with, you know, doing things like smudging and doing things like playing positive music and getting good vibes in the area. That's always helped. And, you know, crystals and stuff can help if that's something that you're into. And just, it's always about making sure that you're keeping positive energy, light, opening up your windows, bringing in that good natural light.
I've still got a crystal that the Geos gave me. I've still got my crystal from them. They
Oh, yeah?
sent me a bit of crystal one time. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, I love listening to people talking about all of that crystal kind of stuff. I don't fully understand it, but I know that there's definitely a lot of untapped power, information, a lot of science contained in those things, you know, and I think there's probably a lot to be gleaned and a lot to be gained if we knew more about them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. I think we've only unlocked a portion of what we could have the opportunity to learn from in these natural minerals and things around us.
You know, you sometimes look at these big crystals in the ground, or I do, and I look at these big crystal caves and things like that, and then you think about how crystals used in electronics today, and you know, we could be looking at the Library of Alexandria, and we don't even know how to read it. It could be all around us in crystalline, it could be all around us in rock, and here we are thinking we're the most advanced entities anywhere in the universe, and we've got all of this magical stuff all around us, and we've got no idea how to use it, Felisha. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it really is. Well, it really is.
Listen, I have had a blast tonight. I hope you've had half as good a time as I have, because that means you'll have had a great time. But I hope we can do this again in the future, and we'll get into maybe some science and stuff like that next time as well. But listen, you have been a star today. Real people, real radio. And oh wow, you've been awesome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to be here talking with you. So I appreciate it. And I had a great time. It has been wonderful. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. And if there's anything weird and wonderful happening in Utah, expect a call. Okay, you're going to be my person on the ground. I can definitely rely on you. You've got a logical head. You've got woo on your shoulders as well. I tell you, perfect for KBS. And I hope all of you listeners out there tonight, I hope you really enjoyed this one. I've had a blast. It's been all the kind of topics we usually talk about on Freaky Friday. We'll maybe get Felisha in for a Freaky Friday in the near future. That would be a good fit. Been ages since we've had some. I think Nano Girl was the last woman on Freaky Friday. It needs to happen again soon. I've had a blast today. Stay tuned for Lucky coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll open the phones up. So until then, wherever you are, make it TFR and Denny touch that dial.